Welcome to Business World. I'm your host Siddharth, and today on BW Tech Talks, we have Mr. Manish Sharma, President and CEO, Panasonic India and South Asia. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much.
So, Mr. Manish, let's start with the current hot topic, COVID-19. So, tell us, how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected Panasonic India's business operations?
So, I think not only it has affected Panasonic India's business operations, but I think this is one of the biggest challenges humanity has faced in the recent past. And when I say that, we do understand that potentially a pandemic of this magnitude happened about 100 years before. So in that sense, none of us have experienced this kind of magnitude in our lives. But talking about Panasonic, yes, needless to say that there has been a significant impact. Initially, this impact was felt on the supply side during the months of February and early part of March. And subsequently, post-lockdown, the impact shifted dramatically towards the demand side. And while we all understand that the country now has gone into a mode which is sort of unlocking itself. So we see some early shoots, but I think there has been a significant impact during last 3 months or so. And if I have to sort of quantify the impact, the business was almost a standstill during the month of April. And from the second week of May onwards, while the retail stores started to open up in some parts of the country. And today, while we talk, 75% of retail is already up and open. And 80% of our sales promoters are already at the shop front, because that is the first engine. When material starts to roll to the consumer from the retail fronts, then the back-end operations start to sort of gear up, and then subsequently the manufacturing will scale itself up. So that is the kind of situation we are in. I'm personally optimistic about the early shoots which we are seeing at this point of time, and hopeful that the run towards Diwali is going to be far more better than what we anticipated when the lockdown started to happen.
This is one of the biggest and very unprecedented situation that all of us are in. Have you seen any sort of changes in consumer behavior over the period of the lockdown and even today and going forward?
I personally believe that this is unprecedented and unpredictable also. So there is so much which is going to unfold in the time to come. But talking about individual levels, I think from the point of view of consumers' behavior, there are some early indicators which we have started to observe. In the first instance, as we know that during the lockdown, we all started to sort of take care of our household work by ourselves in the potential absence of a situation where housemates, etc., were not as adequately available during those days. So in that sense, the demand of products like vacuum cleaners or those products which were helping people multitask started to improve. And there were some more products which were related to lifestyle of individuals. So I think those behavior patterns, I think, started to emerge. But in simple sense, I believe that this crisis is going to create a significant impact on two things. One is the way people live, whether it is within their residential spaces or while they are on the move from their residences to their workspaces, and finally within their workspaces. So I think fundamental way we live our life or the way we work is going to change. And second is, I think our attitude or approach towards understanding the purpose of life itself, the higher purpose, is going to significantly get revisited. So these are two things which I believe so far personally I have learned during this pandemic.
So as we know that Panasonic has multiple product lines in its portfolio, which product line is the revenue driver for the company? It gives the maximum, contributes the maximum to your revenue. If you can talk about that, and will it be the same going forward also? If you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I think majority of people in India relate Panasonic with consumer appliances. And within consumer appliances, it's about televisions, it's about air conditioners, refrigerators, washing machines, microwave ovens. And we do a lot of rice cookers, electric rice cookers, and juicers, mixers, grinders. We do irons. So I think a lot of people relate Panasonic with being a consumer appliances company. But the fact of the matter is that this is only about half of our revenues into the country. and the remaining half comes out of products which are more B2B in nature. So while half of the revenues are coming out of consumer-oriented appliances, 30 or 32% of revenues come out of our entity called Panasonic Life Solutions Private Limited, which is erstwhile Anchor Electricals. So I'm sure a lot of people have grown using anchor switches, wires and wiring devices, etc., fans, LED lights. So that contributes to almost about 30 or 32% of our revenues in the country. Then we get significant revenues from products which are industrial devices in nature, which essentially means motors, compressors. It also means lithium-ion batteries for BTS applications, telecom tower, data center, those kind of mission critical applications. And then we have a large division of system solutions, which essentially means products like projectors. So if you happen to visit a movie hall, there is a large possibility that you might be watching that movie on a Panasonic projector. We lead that market. Then we do professional display signages, so which go into shopping mall applications, boardroom applications, office automations. Then we do security and surveillance solutions. We do PBX solutions. We do desktop telephones, so on and so forth. So needless to say, Panasonic is much beyond being a consumer appliances company in the country. And the very reason company does businesses into diversified products provides us an opportunity to create solutions beyond box sales.
Okay, so going forward, will the pattern remain the same, or you expect some some specific product line to be your major growth driver?
So there are two aspects here. First aspect is, if I go back few years from today, so the kind of midterm strategy which we created for ourselves, I think that fundamental is going to remain the same. And that fundamental was that how Panasonic, being a product company, can transform itself to a solution providing company for people and for societies at large. For this, I will share the kind of vision which we set for ourselves about 7 years before, when the current CEO took over the global operations of Panasonic Corporation. So the vision statement is that Panasonic is committed to provide a better life and a better world. This essentially means a better life for people and a better world for societies. And again, if I have to go further down this, it essentially means a better life means B2C oriented businesses, and a better world means B2B oriented businesses. So as I mentioned to you, in India, approximately half of our revenues come out of consumer appliances. 30 or 32% of revenues come out of products which are household devices, wires, wiring devices, LED lamps, which again are consumer oriented products. So you can understand that approximately 20% of revenues of the company are coming out of B2B oriented businesses today. Our intention is in next 5 years to create contribution of B2C and B2B exactly half. So 50% of business which is B2C oriented, 50% of business which is B2B oriented. The new products and solutions which will emerge in the time to come will essentially be divided into 5 different verticals for Panasonic India. First one, which potentially will continue to be identity of Panasonic in India, will be consumer appliances business. The second one will be called life solutions businesses, which is devices which will go within the residential spaces. Third one is very important, which is going to emerge from now onwards, and this is potentially in line with the recent solutions which we have introduced in the India market, which is how do we create an environment of smart, connected and energy efficient houses. So utilizing our first two capabilities, the consumer appliances and the life solution products, we will build digital capabilities to create smart home experience within the residential spaces. So this is the third vertical. Fourth vertical is energy, which essentially means lithium-ion battery storage solutions for mission critical applications. So this is our fourth pillar in this. And final pillar is related with the learnings which we have taken out of the current pandemic, which essentially means, and also it is very much in line with how Government of India is wanting to create the future of our country being a manufacturing hub. So this essentially is a combination of the remaining businesses of Panasonic and fundamentally focusing on bringing in industrial IoT based solutions in the country to align ourselves with the purpose of Make in India.
So,
Great.
how big is the Indian market? How big is the Indian market for Panasonic? And can you tell us the revenue that you earn from India and your projected revenue? And like, do you expect it to earn bigger than China going forward?
There are two things out here. First is, what is the fundamental consideration of a multinational organization from a particular geography? So, for example, Panasonic Corporation is a Japanese company operating out of India, and our consideration is very different. We do not only consider India as an opportunity to do our business, but I think the fundamental consideration is that India, apart from being an opportunity, we also consider that as a capability, which essentially means that we will start to grow our manufacturing base in India to look at making that an export hub, especially for the West. And secondly, we also look at India being a service provider for our subsidiaries, other operations out of India. So in that sense, both, one, a business perspective, and the other one is how do we look at India being a capability to service Panasonic subsidiaries elsewhere. Coming to your point that do we sort of consider India's scale of business exceeding China in next few years? I believe that there are again two things out here. One, the potential itself. Needless to say, our intention is to really expand both on our business scale and market share within the categories we operate. So in that sense, it is natural to assume that with the growing demand, the business of Panasonic is going to increase. And today, the scale of our revenues is roughly about 11,000 crores in the country, divided into businesses, which I mentioned to you. So needless to say, we are looking at not an incremental growth to happen in the time to come, because the kind of potential which exists within the categories we operate. For example, air conditioners today in our country is only a penetration of 5%, which means that this is going to really grow in the time to come. And some of the estimates reflect that it has a potential to grow 17 to 18% CAGR for next 10 to 12 years, which is a massive potential. So in that sense, needless to say, we have large ambitions to continue to grow in this country. However, this is not all what we are looking at India. We also want to make India as a capability to export products from here and also export services from here.
Has Panasonic seen any sales growth through the digital channels? And if yes, what are your initiatives in this particular field?
As you all know that, we are a country full of young people. I mean, 65% of our population is below the age of 35. And therefore, in last few years, since the advent of e-commerce in our country, the sales through e-commerce platforms is growing quite exponentially. And it varies product to product. So some of the electronic products, the contribution coming out of digital platforms is quite large. For example, television, I think for the industry, almost 30 to 35% of televisions are already starting to sell through digital platforms. In case of home appliances, because we are a country where I think touch and feel plays a major role before people make their purchasing decisions. So in products wherein specifications speak for themselves, I think there is a traction which is happening more towards digital platforms. And in products where family has to come together, where they want to really touch and feel and see before they make their purchasing decisions. So washing machines or refrigerators, to some extent air conditioners. So there the situation is such that, of course, growth is happening across digital platforms, but the larger share of sales still continues to come out of offline platforms. And therefore, I think these days we have started to engage with customers in a way which is more consistent than what it used to be in the past. And you have to really be very close to the consumer to remain in the consideration set. And therefore, synchronization between platforms where the purchase decisions happen, which essentially are the e-commerce platforms, and platforms where otherwise consumers are present for either their entertainment requirements or for their engagement requirements. So you have to be with the customer throughout their life or throughout their journey to remain relevant in their consideration set. So I think as a brand, we have really started to shift our resource allocation more towards digital marketing in the recent past. And I think the trends of near future are going to be more shift of these resources towards digital mediums to remain relevant and be in the consideration set of customers who eventually will make their purchasing decisions in the digital space.
I mean, how important are tier 2 and tier 3 cities? Will you stick to the offline model over there, or will it be digital, or will it be a mix of both? And will there be like some price consideration, considering the affordability factor of these tier 2 and 3 customers?
So I believe the first point is that all the platforms or all the channels are going to coexist, and we have to make sure that the best reaches out to consumers. So the first perspective is which are the products which are more suitable for a set of consumers who are there in tier 2 or tier 3. One of the examples is a lot of washing machine sale which happens into these markets are the ones which are twin tub washing machines, the semi-automatic, where potentially the homemaker is very conscious of utilizing the detergent to its maximum. So therefore, it is no longer the ones which are fully automatic or single tub machines which are finding traction in these markets. So there are twin tub semi-automatic machines which sell more. This is just one example. And therefore, we have to, in the first instance, propose products which are more suitable for those customers. Second is, I personally believe that channels are going to coexist, and the purchasing journey will be such that people in those markets will sort of browse through and research their products in the e-commerce space or in the digital space, may eventually go and touch and feel the product at the retail store and end up buying it over there. So I think that is the kind of model which for a few years is going to prevail in those cities, and then the best thing will prevail.
Okay. And so you also spoke about Make in India and export of plans for India. The government recently came out with Atmanirbhar program. They're talking about self-reliance. So how do you, what are the takeaways of this program? How do you intend to leverage on that? And will you accelerate your production plans and export plans? And also, if you can mention the markets where you intend to export your products to.
So I personally believe that the recent announcement by also Honorable Prime Minister, and we've been hearing that it is extremely important for all of us across industry to come forward and make sure that India becomes self-reliant. So personally, I'm completely aligned with this thought process. I personally believe that the need of the hour for our country is to ensure that we really become self-reliant. Now, what is the meaning of self-reliant? First, it essentially means that we should be depending on ourselves for the requirement, all what is needed to manufacture goods in this country. Again, it means backward integration. So how do we look at backward integrating ourselves? So in last many years, I think one good thing which has happened is, since the program of Make in India was started, is that we have started to manufacture goods in this country, or rather I would say assemble goods in this country. So one of the examples, if I have to give, is air conditioners are assembled to the extent of 70% of the total consumption which happens in our country. Now there are two perspectives coming out of this. First is 30% of the finished goods which are consumed in our country in air conditioners category are still imported, which in my opinion is a low hanging fruit. So we should make sure that we bring in the manufacturing of those goods also in the country and make it self-reliant for this category. The second is how much backward integration has happened in this category, wherein components are getting manufactured in our country. I think the need of the hour is to make sure that we really come together, the industry comes together with the nudge of government of India also, start to backward integrate and manufacture those components here. So compressors, motors, fan motors, coils, and those kind of components should start to get manufactured in the country. So that is one perspective. The other one is not only we become self-reliant and backward integrate, but we also make India a hub to export from here. And this should be our big ambition in next few years' time. And we make sure that we get our due within the global supply chains. Coming to Panasonic, our initiatives in line with this direction, I think the first and foremost is that we have been reasonably aligned with this purpose for last many years. And I think hearing the recent announcements and also a very clear intent of Government of India, this provides us great encouragement. But I think last 6 years, we made significant investments in terms of creating manufacturing capabilities in India. We started off about 6.5, 7 years before by setting up a place called Techno Park. So there's a place called Jhajjar, which is about an hour's drive from Gurgaon, where we acquired a 75-acre land and set up 4 factories. First one was for air conditioners, washing machines, and then for welding machines, and subsequently we set up a refrigerator manufacturing facility last year within those premises. Apart from that, 2 years before, we started off a very large factory for Anchor Electricals in Haridwar. And while we talk, we are into a new project in Sri City to set up yet another large factory where the intention is to export products from here to Europe and also potentially to other Western economies. So that is how we have reflected our commitment to ensure that whatever sale we do in this country is produced here locally. So almost all the consumer appliances which we sell, or almost all the wires and wiring devices which we sell in this country, are produced here locally. So that is our intention while we go forward also. We also started to export air conditioners, televisions, washing machines to South Asia markets and also to Middle East and Africa. Since last 5 years, we have been taking that initiative. Apart from this, I think there is a matter of pride for all of us here at Panasonic that one of our factories in Chennai, which manufactures electronic rice cookers, has started to export rice cookers from here back to Japan, which is our parent country. So that I thought I must share on this platform. So those are the kind of thought processes which are cutting across Panasonic. As I mentioned, in the time to come, our intention is to really accelerate B2B businesses here, and therefore there will be a large focus on products like lithium-ion batteries and also enabling the digital platforms. I must share one very important strategic digital platform with you, which we call Mirai. Meaning of Mirai, it's a Japanese word. It essentially means future homes. So I think Panasonic is going to really build this digital platform up, which essentially means that how do we create a smart, connected and energy efficient experience within the residential spaces. So we want to really create that experience to people wherein when they live within their residential spaces, they find a lot of comfort and convenience at a cost which is very affordable. So that is the kind of thought process which is cutting across. Finally, I believe that these are opportune times. And as I mentioned that currently with this pandemic, I think the thought process has really accelerated. And it gives a delight for me to share that two very important stakeholders have come together. So which is the industry itself and government. And really we are investing a lot of time and diving deep into understanding that how do we position India as one of the leading countries in the global supply chain, which essentially means that how do we really become self-reliant. And Government of India is really encouraging us to find out ways and means to ensure that manufacturing in our country accelerates from here on. At this point of time, I may not be in a position to share more details, but what I can say is that some really good times are ahead of all of us.
So now you spoke about Mirai. So smart appliances, do you think they'll find more relevance going ahead in the future? Because everybody is under lockdown and working from home, learning from home. These are the new keywords which everybody is used to now. So do you think smart appliances will catch more traction, or we are in a price sensitive market and that will play a big role?
So your both points are really important, and I think those are central to our consideration, because on one aspect we have to create sort of IoT oriented strategy which is cost efficient. So I think that is what our thought process is. When we introduced Mirai to the world, I use the word that this is democratization of technology, which essentially means a very similar philosophy which came out of the founder of Panasonic Corporation, Konosuke Matsushita. I'm a great admirer of Matsushita. One of his business philosophies was that technology should be like tap water. It should be available in abundance at affordable cost. So taking inspiration from that thought process, we introduced Mirai, wherein the incremental cost of technology which will help people get their appliances or products within their residential spaces connected should come at a marginal incremental cost. And potentially our aim is that it should not have even marginal incremental cost in the time to come. So therefore, you might notice that this year, based on our platform of Mirai, we introduced the new range of air conditioners, wherein the differential between a non-connected AC and a connected AC is very marginal. And the kind of value which it brings to the consumers is exponential. So our intention is that Mirai should cut across the entire residential space, which essentially means that it will help almost everything within the house to get connected and provide an experience wherein not only the initial buying cost, but the total cost of ownership is as low as possible when the consumer experiences these products in the entire life cycle.
Many companies look for India-specific products. For that needs a dedicated R&D center. So, do we expect some similar activities from Panasonic, or are you already doing it? If you're already doing it, do you wish to accelerate that? If you can talk about that. And also, those products, will they be catering to global markets, those products developed in India, or only for local markets?
Panasonic has two very important functions in India. The first one is India Innovation Center, which we set up about 3 years before in Bangalore. And the very purpose of setting up India Innovation Center was to design solutions from scratch, which may not necessarily be part of Panasonic's existing product or solutions portfolio, and in that sense help organizations diversify into new areas. And there are a few innovative solutions which IIC has developed over the last few years. The first one which comes to my mind is Mirai itself. This very platform which is intelligent enough to create smart homes of the future is conceptualized, designed, developed and introduced in India, potentially for the world. So this is the first example. The other one, which is very specific to the current challenge which we are facing, and where we believe that social distancing would remain a normal for some time. So another solution which IIC developed is called C-Kit, which essentially means that how do we create solutions which will help us identify, based on Bluetooth technology, products which are within a specific vicinity. And initially we introduced this solution for applications like smart luggage, where people will be able to track their luggage utilizing an application on your mobile phone. And now we are sort of conducting a proof of concept to see that how this technology can help people maintain social distancing within their workspaces, within the manufacturing factories, etc. So proof of concept is going on. And another example of a product and solution which was introduced is called rural healthcare, which again is coming very handy during these times. So this solution of rural healthcare we created 3 years before. And this essentially is a platform which helps people into rural areas get connected with the health authorities. And now we are also trying to scale it up to ensure that during the current times, we really provide those solutions to societies. So this is the first initiative which Panasonic India has taken to innovate from India for the world. The other one is typical R&D. So for our consumer appliances business, we have a R&D center again based out of Bangalore. And the purpose of that R&D center is to design, customize and localize consumer appliances from India and again for the world. So one example which I gave you was that we have started to export rice cookers from India back to Japan. I mean, how many Indian companies would be exporting the standard of products which are required by a Japanese market from here? So that is again a result of the efforts of the R&D center, which is based out of India.